Anthony Duclair has stepped away from the Islanders after Patrick Roy's harsh comments earlier this week. We'll talk about the impact on Duclair and on the team short-term and long-term. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us to talk a little Islanders hockey today. And this has not been an easy day for the New York Islanders organization and, of course, for Anthony Duclair. Early on Thursday morning, at practice, head coach Patrick Roy indicating that Duclair was not participating in practice, that Duclair had come into Roy's office. The two of them had what he described as a constructive talk, and Duclair is more or less stepping away from the team. And look, here is the bottom line, okay? Here's what Roy said this morning. Anthony and I had a very good conversation, a very positive one. And Anthony asked me if he could take some time off and reflect. So obviously I agreed to that, and we'll give him all the time he needs. Wow. We're going to discuss a few things about this today, and I want to underline it with this. If there are bigger issues here, and nobody has said there are, and nobody has said there aren't, but if there are bigger issues for Anthony Duclair regarding his mental health or his physical health, the most important thing to me is that Anthony Duclair, the person, gets the help that he needs and can straighten things out and can, move forward and be healthy. Physically, mentally, totally. That is, to me, the most important thing. For the New York Islanders right now, as of Thursday evening, before the results of all the games, the Islanders have a 2% chance, according to MoneyPuck.com, of making the playoffs this year. They have 8 games to go. There are 4 teams that they need to jump. They need to make up points. They need to pass other teams. If they go 6-1-1 in their last 8 games, and it's not an easy schedule, the odds of the Islanders making the playoffs are still far from good. And that's if they're capable of going 6-1-1, which historically, the way this team has played all year, they're probably not going to do it. Yeah, they had a 7-game winning streak earlier, but again, that was with Brock Nelson, that was with Anthony Duclair, that was with a lot of different circumstances. Bottom line right now, Anthony Duclair had a disappointing season with the New York Islanders in 2024-2025. He signed the 4-year free agent contract at $3.5 million a year, and the hope was he would fill in on the top line with Bo Horvat and Matthew Barzal and add a little speed and add a little juice to the lineup. And unfortunately, after just 5 games, he blew out his groin, pulled the groin muscle. For somebody who relies on his speed and his skating to create chances, that's a big handicap. That is a big problem. It is hard for any player in the NHL to skate and change directions and do things with the groin injury. So now the question becomes, how much of his poor play this year, 11 points, 7 goals, 11 points in 44 games, how much of it is due to the injury and its after effects, and how much of it is due to something else? That is the first question. Now, when Duclair indicated and Roy indicated he's stepping away, you got 8 games left. I would doubt, and I don't have any inside information to confirm this, but I would doubt that we see Anthony Duclair in any of the final 8 games of the year. It would be a pleasant surprise if he does, come back sooner, but I don't think we're going to see Anthony Duclair. So now the question becomes, how do the Islanders handle this short term, and how do they handle it long term? Short term, Bo Horvat at practice on Thursday indicating that a torn groin is very difficult to recover from, and he spoke highly of Duclair's effort to get back and try to contribute. And maybe, I don't know if Patrick Roy is going to appreciate that comment, but that comment was made. As far as the short term is concerned, the New York Islanders are not going to be calling up anybody right away from Bridgeport. And Patrick Roy indicates that Matt Martin will be in the Islanders lineup. He has not played since January 16th. The last 30 games, he has been a healthy scratch. And Martin took it in stride, obviously not going to mention the Duclair situation directly, but from his own perspective, I'm excited to get back in the lineup and play a game at home. It means a lot. Anytime you play with your teammates, it's special. I've been a while here, so to get in some game action, I can hopefully contribute. Patrick Roy on Matt Martin. He's been a great leader. It's impressive the way he's been working hard every day at practice, pushing the guys that were not playing and helping them to have a positive mindset. I'm excited to give him the opportunity to play tomorrow. So the moves that were made in practice are Maxim Siplikov moves up to the second line with J.G. Pajot and Simon Holmstrom. And then Matt Martin slots in with Kyle McLean and Mark Gatcomb on the fourth line. Martin adds, I knew what I signed up for when he signed the PTO and then the contract. I just tried to come with a fresh mindset and be a positive person in the locker room. We're all in this to win hockey games, whether you're playing or not. That's the focus. I have an opportunity to play tomorrow and make the best of it. That was Matt Martin at Thursday's practice. So that's one move over the short term. The other move that the Islanders made, according to Patrick Roy, is that either Scott Mayfield or Mike Riley will be playing against the Wild on Friday. Adam Boqvist will sit. Ilya Sorokin will be the goalie. So that's what it looks like as of right now, as far as the lineup is concerned. And look, as someone who has been a fan of Matt Martin over the course of his career with the Islanders, I'm happy that he gets a chance to play. I mean, let's face it, if the Islanders have 2% chance of getting into the playoffs at this point, it doesn't make that big of a difference who the Islanders put into the lineup. The season is more or less over at this point as far as making the playoffs goes. There are 8 games left. You're going to give Matt Martin a chance tonight against the Wild. What happens after that, I don't know. I would still prefer, at some point over the last 7 games that are remaining after this game against the Wild that some kids or players at Bridgeport who deserve to get a few games, see what they could do at the NHL level, I would welcome that more than having some of the players who have been struggling continue to just go out there and do their thing. So we'll see whether or not that happens. I get the feeling it won't happen until the Islanders are mathematically eliminated, if it happens at all. But the one thing that I think is in the back of my mind, and I'm trying to figure this out, is why Anthony Duclair. And don't get me wrong, Anthony Duclair, as I said, and everydayers are aware, he hasn't had a good year. He has struggled. And that's not the issue. You definitely could be critical of Anthony Duclair's play against Tampa Bay the other night, and really for most of this season. He has struggled. But you know how many other players have been just as bad, if not worse, over the course of this season? Been very inconsistent, made a lot of the same mistakes over and over and over again. Haven't brought the juice and the energy that we want to see. Anthony Duclair is not alone. And the question I'm asking, and there is no apparent answer right now, is why did Patrick Roy choose to single out Anthony Duclair after that game against Tampa Bay? When even in that game alone, there were 4 or 5 other players who easily could have been the object of that kind of criticism. All I could tell you is I want the best for Anthony Duclair. I want the best for the New York Islanders. This year is over in my mind for the Duke, even if he comes back for a game or 2, which I don't think will happen. This was a lost season, a bad season for Anthony Duclair. But what is the future for Anthony Duclair with the New York Islanders? We're going to talk about that. Plus, we'll preview both of this weekend's games. And for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a goalie who got away from the New York Islanders and went on to a Hall of Fame career. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. It's springtime, and if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep after the clock's moved, 5 Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late to watch the NCAA tournament or a hockey game, squeezing in around a golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5 Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. To me, with the longer days, I love getting outside for a hike or a run, and Tropical Burst is my go-to for a quick boost. Whether I'm at a game or traveling, 5 Hour Energy is an easy way to grab and go, and it keeps me feeling refreshed. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12 or 24 pack and have it delivered right to your door. Need one now? Grab a 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere, so stock up today and stay energized. So the short-term effect on the Islanders is one struggling player is out of the lineup. You put in another guy who has also struggled this year in Matt Martin, who has a little less offensive potential perhaps, but realistically, since the Islanders season is more or less over as far as playoffs are concerned, the short-term fallout is not significant. But what's the long-term situation? Let's start with this. Anthony Duclair has 3 more seasons left on his deal with the New York Islanders. Patrick Roy signed an extension with the Islanders at some point in the last year. In theory, both of them will be back. Now, The conversation that Patrick Roy and Anthony Duclair had, all we know is how Patrick Roy described it. And if it was positive, the way Roy said it was, that gives us hope. And remember, and everydayers, we discussed this several times, the reason that Anthony Duclair, or one of the big reasons that Anthony Duclair signed with the New York Islanders, was at the recommendation of Patrick Roy and because he knows Patrick Roy. Roy coached Anthony Duclair in juniors. The key going forward, assuming that Patrick Roy remains the coach next year, and I'd say that is more likely than not, although it's not guaranteed. But if Roy is back and Duclair is not traded, and I would think his trade value around now would be next to nothing, coming off the groin injury and the comments made by Patrick Roy, can these two get back on the same page? Can they coexist and work together for the betterment of the team? That is the key. And if the answer is yes, there's no issue. There's no problem long term. If the answer is no, something's got to give. One of these two guys, whether it's Roy, whether it's Duclair, is going to have to move on for this situation to work. Now, I get the feeling based on the fact that, it's been more than a decade that these two guys have known each other and have worked together, that they will be able to work it out. And that would be to the benefit of everybody involved. But we still have to see how that happens. So off the ice, you got to be able to repair the relationship between Patrick Roy and Anthony Duclair. On the ice, though, here is the big question. What happens with Anthony Duclair health-wise? The groin injury, and as we said, it's a difficult injury to come back from. If he takes off, we're realistically talking about April, May, June, July, August. You're going to give him 5.5, 6 months before training camp opens up. Is that enough rest time to fully heal, to get that speed and that acceleration, that burst back in Anthony Duclair's game, and then have him be the Anthony Duclair we expected on Long Island? Because let's face this fact. If Anthony Duclair is only going to play and produce the way he did this year, which again is 7 goals and 11 points in 44 games, a minus 15 plus minus rating, that's not going to work. And just a year ago, in 73 games, split between a really bad San Jose Sharks team and the Tampa Bay Lightning, Duclair had 24 goals and 42 points in 73 games. Now, he had a little more ice time. He was averaging 15 minutes and 46 seconds of ice time. That's about 45 seconds more than he was averaging this year with the Islanders. But, let's say he comes back and can give you 16, 18 minutes a game if he's fully healthy. The question is, what are you potentially getting? And, he will turn 30 in August. He still should have several good years left to play at a high level. Here's a guy who, as we have mentioned, has been on a lot of teams. He's played for Arizona, Florida, Ottawa, San Jose, Columbus, the Islanders, the Rangers, the Blackhawks, and the Lightning. That's 9 teams in 11 years. How does he bounce back? How does he respond? Does he play a role in the Islanders as a top 6 or even a third line winger in 2025, 2026? And if he doesn't, do you just cut him, place him on waivers? Again, I don't think there's a lot of trade value out there. The one thing you cannot do if you're the New York Islanders is allow any problems happening personally, in the relationship between Duclair and Roy to affect the locker room. You can't let that happen. And you can't keep putting him on the ice if he's not playing well. Again, it's accountability. And we've talked about that a lot this season, the lack of accountability. There's nobody on this team who you could just say, oh, yeah, you better play well, because if you don't play well, we're putting so-and-so into the lineup and you're sitting. Matt Martin hasn't played since mid-January. He's been a healthy scratch all that time. No offense to Matt Martin, but let's face it, his career is probably done in the NHL after this season. This team needs more depth. They need more skill. They need to get younger, faster, more skilled. That's our mantra here on the Locked On Islanders podcast. Everydayers, you know it well. Long term, they've got to straighten this out. They've got to figure this out and make it work, or they've got to find a way to move on. But I am hoping for better from Anthony Duclair, both on and off the ice. I am rooting for him, and hopefully year 2, he justifies the free agent signing a lot better than year 1. And if he doesn't, then you got to cut your losses at some point and move on. We have got more to discuss on today's show. Did you guess who the Islanders' birthday of the day is? This is an easy one. We'll also preview Friday's game against the Wild, Sunday's game against the Caps. We could see some history there. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NCAA tournament is winding down. We've reached the Final Four, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. There weren't a lot of upsets this year. All the number 1 seeds made it to the Final Four, but FanDuel makes it easy to back your favorite team with spreads, totals, and game props. And with tournament games happening this weekend, hey, there's always something exciting to bet on. And the FanDuel app makes it simple to use. And when I win, I get paid instantly. There's no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Final Four time. Again, FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com. Check it out today. 2 games this weekend. Obviously, if the Islanders' slim playoff hopes are going to stay alive, they more or less need to win them both. And they will be facing the Minnesota Wild, who are a team that is struggling with injuries. They are still missing on IR 2 of their best players in Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson Ek. Doubt we see any of them against the Islanders, but we'll see. Minnesota right now fighting for playoff position. And, they are not in a position where they can let down. If the season ended right now, they would be one of the 2 wild cards in the West. And they do have a 7-point cushion, but over Calgary, who is chasing them, although Calgary does have 2 points in hand. They're battling St. Louis for that first wild card spot. And, we'll see whether or not Minnesota, who is just 4-4-2 in their last 10 games and has essentially lost their last 3, can get back on track. They lost to the Devils, both games of a home and home, although one was a shootout loss, and they lost to the Rangers 5-4 in their last contest. The goalies, Philip Gustafsson and Marc-Andre Fleury, and, they still have some talent. Marco Rossi, Matt Boldy, Matt Zuccarello, those are some of the familiar names. Minnesota, 25th in the league in goals scored, 13th in goals against. The power play is 21st in the league, 20.5%. Scary. They're 21st in the league, and they're still almost double the Islanders' power play percentage. The penalty kill is 31st in the league, 72.3%. So maybe the Islanders' power play can take advantage of that. The line combinations right now for the Wild: Marco Rossi, Marcus Foligno, Matt Boldy. That's the top trio. Frederick Gaudreau, Marcus Johansson, and Matt Zuccarello are the second line. Ryan Hartman, Gustav Nyquist, and Vinny Hinostroza. That's the third line. Yakov Trenin, Devin Shore, and Justin Brazeau from left to right make up the fourth line. Jacob Middleton and Brock Faber are the top defensive pairing. Jonas Brodin, Jared Spurgeon are the middle pair, and Declan Chisholm and Zach Bogosian are the third pair. The goalies, Gustafsson and Fleury. So we'll see how the Islanders do. It's a must-win game for them on Friday night. But then Sunday is an even bigger game. Sunday's game, by the way, is a 12:30 in the afternoon Eastern Time game. It's on TNT. But here's the deal. Home game for the New York Islanders. Alexander Ovechkin needs 3 goals to get to Wayne Gretzky. There's one game Friday night. Capitals hosting the Blackhawks. If he scores, even if he doesn't score, he could still get a hat trick against the Islanders. We may see history being made at the UBS Arena for Alexander Ovechkin against the New York Islanders. I'm hoping that we do not see that happen on Sunday afternoon. The Capitals lead the league in goals scored. They're 8th in the league in goals against. The power play, middle of the road, despite all that talent, 14th in the league, 22.2%. The penalty kill is 8th, 81.3%. Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren are the goalies. You look at the line combinations for the Caps. Pierre-Luc Dubois, been a very pleasant surprise. Centers, Ovechkin and Tom Wilson on the top line. Dylan Strome, Alexei Protas, and Ryan Leonard are the second line. Lars Eller, centers Andrew Mangiapane, and Anthony Beauvillier, the former Islander, on the third line. Fourth line, Nick Dowd, Brandon Duhaime, and Connor McMichael. On the blue line, Jacob Chychrun and John Carlson, a very talented top pair. Then it's Rasmus Sandin and Trevor Van Riemsdyk, and then Martin Verhervey and Dylan McElrath on the third pair. Again, you have Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren as the goalies, but Thompson may be a little bit shaken up, so we'll probably see Lindgren unless that changes. Over on IR, Nicholas Backstrom, TJ Oshie, Long Island native Sonny Milano, and Logan Thompson, as I mentioned, kind of out right now, but we'll see whether or not he's ready to go by Sunday. Obviously, you don't want history to be made against Alexander Ovechkin. You don't want to have to see that goal on a highlight film time after time after time. Islanders have to stay out of the penalty box. Islanders have to account for Alexander Ovechkin. And please, please clean up those zone entries and exits so that you pick up your man, you don't give him time and space, and you don't retreat all the time like the Islanders have done too often over the course of this season. Not easy, but hopefully it'll happen. Time now for our Islanders' birthday of the day. And, well, basically, today is the 46th birthday of former Islanders goalie Roberto Luongo. Luongo, the Montreal native, first-round pick of the Islanders in 1997, the 4th overall pick, but only spent 1 year on the island. That was 1999-2000. The Islanders then traded him after they drafted Rick DiPietro with the 1st overall pick. So only 24 games as an Islander for Roberto Luongo, and then he went on to play 1,044 games total in his career. He had 489 career wins, a .919 career save percentage, and a .252 goals against average. All of these very impressive numbers. He is essentially one that got away. He is a member of the Hockey Hall of Fame, won the Jennings Trophy. He's a 2-time All-Star, and had a spectacular NHL career after leaving the island. One of his better memories as an Islander, November 28th, 1999, Islanders visiting the Bruins in Boston. The goaltenders, obviously Roberto Luongo for the Islanders, Byron Defoe in between the pipes for the Bruins. And the Islanders get goals from Jorgen Janssen and Zdeno Chara and end up winning this game by a 2-1 score in spite of being outshot 44-20. Why? Well, Roberto Luongo standing on his head, making 43 saves in 44 shots to win his first ever NHL game. As I mentioned, he went on to win, only 488 more of them. The Islanders struggled. He only won 6 more games as an Islander after this one. But a magic moment for any NHL goalie, their first NHL win. That's the memory for Roberto Luongo, one of the big what-ifs in Islanders history. He is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can follow the show on X at Locked On Isles. You can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYRVSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis, and it's always great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. We'll be back on Monday. We'll have our key takeaways from these 2 weekend games, maybe talk about Alex Ovechkin's record-setting performance, if he does tie or break the record, and we'll update the Islanders' playoff chances, or if they're mathematically eliminated, we'll talk about that as well. But we'll have all the latest news for you on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.